Welcome to What's in the Box, Episodes of Horror with Donna and Eric. I'm Donna.
And I'm Eric.
And joining us today, we have author Jason Nickey. This is the continuation of our Texas AuthorCon author spotlight. So welcome to the show, Jason.
Hey, thanks for having me, y'all.
Glad you could make it.
Yeah, now I know Jason. I met him at AuthorCon 1. We saw each other at AuthorCon 2, and that's where you met him for the first time, Eric, in person anyways. So yeah, it's really exciting. Jason has recently broken into the author world and have put out quite a bit of stuff lately. So that's pretty impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Open the floodgates, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly, right?
It's a good way to do it. Get your stuff out there. Just kind of splash it on everyone. Say, look at this and take it, check it out. So that's a good way to do it.
Yeah. So our first question is really deep and in depth.
Okay.
Jason, Michael, or Freddie? Who's your favorite?
Jason.
Okay, cool.
Wow, you didn't even need to think about that.
No one should, really. I mean, honestly, it is Jason. So.
Well, also, I mean, we both have birthdays on the 13th. We share the name.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's funny. Originally, that question was set up, and it was only Jason versus Michael, because, I mean, that's always the one that people argue the most about when you see it on social media. But every person we asked initially would always say, well, I'd do Freddie if he was there. Or, they always just said Freddie. So I was thinking, oh, okay, well. So we expanded it. And then since we've expanded it, we're trying to get more Jason again. So that's good. But I mean, I understand why people pick Freddie. We say this every time. Freddie talked. So he, therefore, is more charismatic just by nature.
Right.
Well, I'd pick Freddie over Michael, too, because even though it does have bad entries as well, like the Nightmare on Elm Street series is a little bit more fluid, whereas the Halloween series at this point is just so disjointed how much they've let's ignore these sequels and make these movies, and it's kind of gotten ridiculous.
Yeah
In my mind, there's two really good Nightmares, 1 and 3, and so that's why I think the Friday 13th movies are better. I always vote for Jason because I enjoy the entire catalog of Friday the 13th stuff.
Same.
Yeah. Alrighty, so now next question, vampires or werewolves?
Werewolves, just because I think vampires are way overdone.
Yeah. You know what? I don't think we've had a vampire yet, have we?
No, we haven't.
And we're probably 5-6 into this now, so.
No, I'm honestly to the point for the most part, when a movie or book comes out and I see it's about vampires, I pretty much just no.
Oh, that's cool.
Outside of the two from Volpe, I haven't read anything vampire in the last 5-6 years.
I'm exactly the same way. If it's a mainstream project and it comes out and they say, "Oh, we're going to focus on vampires," my initial reaction is, "Oh, good, I can miss this. I don't have to. I don't have to do anything with it." But if you could put the worst werewolf movie in front of me, and I will watch it, so I will give it a shot and usually finish it, even if I hate it, because you say, "Well, maybe at the end we'll fix it," or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I'll sit through anything. If there's a werewolf, I'll give it a shot. So.
Yeah, and now are you team wolf-like werewolf or bipedal werewolf?
I would say my favorite are probably whatever would be closest answer to Dog Soldiers, because that is probably the best werewolf movie ever made.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah, you want them to have some human characteristics. I mean, it's cool when they turn into full wolves that do whatever, but in the end of when we're talking about werewolves, I want them to be walking around on their feet and picking stuff up and all that crazy stuff. So.
Yeah, like in The Howling where he took the folder from her or whatever it was, the chart or
a little more human characteristic.
Yeah.
I do like that. So so as a kid, I mean, what was your favorite scary movie? What got you into the world?
I would say probably the earliest one I remember watching is The Gate. Have you seen that one with Stephen Dorff? I mean, because that was kind of it was a really good intermediate, because it was kind of scary for a kid, but it was a horror movie that wasn't really over the top with the gore and violence, and it wasn't, a lot of really bad language or any sex scenes. It was kind of almost like a family horror movie, even though it did have some scary scenes in it. As a kid, that movie terrified me, but I absolutely loved it. Those little demon things were really cool.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. When I was a kid, I thought what was that? The Ray Bradbury movie. That's now I can't think of what it is.
Something Wicked.
Something Wicked This Way Comes. It doesn't have any. It's Disney made it, And I think it's one of the scariest movies I remember as a kid watching. It's the same idea, Sometimes you don't need the gore and the sex and all that stuff to really knock it out of the park. So
yeah.
Well, what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, and now as an adult, it has that. Do you have a favorite as an adult?
Oh, that's really tough to say because I don't know. That's like picking a favorite child, honestly. I would say I'm definitely more partial, especially in the last like 10, 15 years, to the found footage subgenre. I just really like that subgenre. And
that's cool.
I would say probably at any given time, one movie that's been pretty consistent for a while is VHS. I absolutely love that movie.
Have you ever seen Record?
Oh, the Spanish ones?
Yeah, have you watched those?
Yeah, they were really good. The second one especially. Like the first one was good, but the second one was even better in my opinion.
Yeah, that whole series is really interesting, I mean, Quarantine's fine. I don't mind the remake. I haven't seen the second one though.
So it's really bad.
Yeah, that's what I kind of gathered. But if you watch Quarantine, you're seeing the first Record basically scene for scene. Yeah, no, those are fun. I like that kind of found footage. Paranormal Activity, the first one was pretty good because I saw it in the theater. I don't know if they've continued to be good. Wasn't there like
I liked the first three, and after those, it kind of fell off for me.
Now, are you a fan of Blair Witch?
That was what got me started on that. I mean, I live in West Virginia, but I grew up in Maryland, not far from where the real town of Burkittsville is. And so like I was obsessed with that movie when it came out, and like the house they're in at the end, I've been to that house before it was torn down and stuff. I have even some old photos from it. Like I was actually talking with what's his name? Matt Blasey or Blasey, the Blair Witch guy, that he's at the AuthorCon and stuff.
Oh,
cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know
He's
that.
written like a couple books on the Blair Witch Project and stuff. He lives in Frederick, Maryland. He leads these tours. It's like Blair Witch tours that take you to different sites from the movies and stuff.
And then
like
just
that.
leaves you in the woods. That'd be awesome. Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. No, yeah, found footage. I mean, they have the potential's there, I mean, a lot of times you can tell that they're just trying to make a buck, but when they hit, they really hit well.
Well, to me, it's kind of the same effect as like, because I see people go back and forth in discourse online and stuff with books being written in the first person. And I feel like found footage is kind of like the movie equivalent of a book written in first person, where when it's done right, it can really pull you into the story more, like make you feel like you're really there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I like found footage. I love the Paranormal Activities. I haven't seen all of them. I know there's a bunch of them.
I'm trying to think of some other ones.
7, I think now.
Yeah.
And there's the Area 51 that came out, I guess. Isn't there one that does Area 51 that came out?
It was okay. Like Cloverfield's another one. I mean, that was a mainstream one, but they did it right. That was a really good movie.
Yeah, it was weird. One of the weird ones. I have a dark period when my kid was a certain age I missed, and that was one of the movies I've missed. I've never actually seen that one, so it's on my queue to go stream on Netflix if I ever sit down and actually do something. But
besides,
I will move it up if you yeah. Since you said it always sounded like something I would love because I'm a big fan of that kind of, because it's a big monster movie, right?
Yeah. It's basically like it's not Godzilla, but it's one of those type of stories, but being done in the found footage type camera's perspective, it really adds a lot to the story and puts you in the action with the characters and not just kind of, seeing it being filmed essentially. I saw it in the theaters and it blew me away the first time I watched it.
Yeah, and that's part of the problem there. Twofold. My wife doesn't like horror, so we don't watch anything like that at the house. And then my kid was probably at that weird age where we weren't going to see theater movies, so I probably missed out on it because of that. But to me, found footage feels perfect for the virtual reality stuff. I'm wondering when we're going to start getting more and more of that, because it seems like that's an untapped, for video games or even just watching the movie in that kind of way.
Yeah, that
really
would be
put
pretty
you
cool.
in the middle of it. So
no, thank you. I don't want to be that into a movie.
Oh no, I love it. It'd be great if you can get in there and get it all totally surround sound in your head and have it right there. So yeah, it would be pretty fun. So what's our next thing? Well, is horror your genre? Is that what you like to write, or is there a specific subgenre within horror that you lean towards?
Because I'm so new to it with the writing part anyway, I've kind of just been taking this time. Like a lot of what I've written is short fiction. The longest thing I've written was probably my novella Wreckage, which is maybe 113 pages. So I'm kind of working on that, but I'm also enjoying working on the shorter fiction just because it's giving me an opportunity to try different things out, different types of horror, different perspectives, stuff like that. So it's really letting me experiment with what I'm comfortable with, but it's actually also making it tougher because I haven't found a perspective to write in yet, or like a subgenre to try that I haven't enjoyed. So it's not like there's nothing really drawing me in one direction or the other. It's just kind of like I'm really enjoying just kind of doing a mixed bag of everything.
And I think that's actually better. You know what I mean? So you're not going to be pigeonholed. You're not going to be that guy that writes, webbed foot horror or something crazy like that. You're going to be the guy that writes horror. And that's what I think we all should be. We all are horror writers. Sometimes we get pushed into the extreme. I know a lot of indie horror people get pushed into extreme or splatter, but we're all just writing horror, and there's just different levels of what's going on in there. And so the fact that you can do all these different, subgenres, I think that's a gift. And I think that's the way
absolutely.
to go, because you're going to get to a point where you're bored of writing that if you're doing the same thing over and over again. So I think it's good that you can tap into anything and do all these different things. And I think it's a real talent to do short. Short's hard. Doing short stories good, and being able to hit, land every one of those. I mean, that takes a lot of talent. So I think that's really cool that that's what you're working on.
Yeah. Now, if somebody came to you and said, hey, you know what, I'm really new to the horror genre, what book would you recommend to them?
That's a tough question too, because it would be one of those I would go, okay, what are you looking for in the horror genre? Because there's such a broad range of everything in there. Because, if somebody's not, a beginner that's really sensitive to certain things, I'm not going to be like, oh, go read Violence on the Meek. I'm not going to throw that at somebody.
Yeah,
or
sure.
like go read Womb. It depends on the person, what they like and stuff like that. But if somebody comes up to me and says like, give me the most messed up book you can think of, I'd probably have like 5 I could name right off the top of my head that, like The Slob, Womb, Violence on the Meek, Summer I Died, stuff like that, if they wanted to get into more extreme stuff. But as far as general horror, it's kind of tough to say. I would probably still lean towards something indie, just because here lately that's the majority of what I read. I've kind of strayed far away from the mainstream. I'd rather give my money to indie authors.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Me too.
Well, and I just say indie authors are actually doing interesting things. Even the ones that aren't focusing on the real extreme stuff that I kind of like to read. They're able to and willing to take a chance that the mainstream guys can't, because the publishers won't let them. So you'll find I think a broader,
A good answer for that, I would probably say, like, if it was general horror, I'd probably lead in like Faces of Beth is one that comes to mind, because that was my favorite book of last year. Carver's a fantastic writer, and even though that's like the least gory and extreme of any of his stories, it's my favorite of what he's done, just because it was such a good story.
Yeah.
Carver's
Team Gore. Team Gore all the way. And not gore as in splatter, but gore as in the character.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite horror novel?
That's a tough one too.
Or maybe the first one you read that got you into it, maybe something like that.
I mean, the very basic, I think one of them that started it for a lot of us was probably Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. I always liked horror movies, and I remember getting that book from the library as a kid because the cover was really creepy. And I was like 6, 7 years old. That was a scary cover, and I was like, I want to read this. And some of the stories were funny. Some of them scared the crap out of me, and like that really sparked it all. By the time I was maybe 10, 11 years old, I was starting to read stuff like Stephen King.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've noticed that's a theme that most of us have, is that we all read Stephen King way earlier than we probably should have. Because there wasn't that much to choose from back then, I mean, there were a few, but he was the one that was on all the library shelves that nobody seemed to ever stop you from taking. So
yeah.
Yep.
So when you are writing, what kind of music do you do? Music, or you are no music guy?
I actually have complete silence. Any kind of music or background noise distracts me.
Yes, we're split. Not that there's actually like a line or whatever, but I always have something blaring. Donna does not. So
yeah. Yep. And it's funny because it's been like kind of half and half with everybody we've interviewed, because Rebecca Rowland was the same way.
Yeah, she was
silence.
Complete silence, yeah.
it's just it's any kind of, especially if it would have lyrics that would just distract me from it, that would pull me out of it. And because it's kind of one of those, if you do silence too, Donna, I'm sure you're the same way. It's like you kind of get in a zone, and it's just like everything around you needs to be gone. And it's like you just
Yeah, no, my problem is that I got 2 huskies and kid and the wife, and they're all making noise, so I put the headphones on and try and drown that out. So the louder the better. But you're right. If I start having lyrics, I start kind of thinking about the lyrics, and then maybe I could kind of start seeing it, me going in that direction. But I definitely like having some kind of noise. Like I'll have scores and things like that going on.
Okay.
But most of it's just to drown out the normal noise that's going on in the house. So I have a very wide open house. There's no like doors to close kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one of my challenges because my house is never quiet.
Yeah, I know. I'm shocked that you don't have something going.
That's the thing. I mean, I don't have kids, so I mean, I guess that's a different factor there. But like, it's just the 2 of us here, and this is usually the office that Jared works from home at when he works from home. And like, I've written while he's been at home working or working on something in here. He's on the phone. That kind of stuff doesn't bother me. But if it's like, I guess it's like an attention span thing. If it's a TV show or like a music or something like that I would want to pay attention to, it's going to pull me out of it.
Yeah, my wife's a big something has to be on at all times. So she's always got TV on. So constant shows. Or I've listened to the Gilmore Girls probably 10, 15 times since I've been married. So, so that I got to cut that out too, because there's always a show going on. So
you want to tell us what's your newest project that you've just put out, or what are you working on currently?
Well, okay. I actually just started one today. It was actually a funny thing. Like, there's a group chat I'm in. We were in for a buddy read, and Mr. Enenbach chimes in and he's like, "I have this idea, but it's not my style. I think you should write it." And he sent it in, and for me, what I read from it, it was like, this sounds like a short story idea. But I tossed it in my head all day yesterday, and I kind of let it grow into something bigger. So I've wrote 6,000 words on that today.
Oh, that's awesome.
I don't know what's gonna end up becoming, what I'm gonna do with it, when it's gonna come out, but that's just something I started today. My initial plan was to do some final edits on my upcoming project, which is the first story I ever released was on Godless. It was a short story, Appalachian Zombies, and I think you read that one, Donna.
Yep.
I'm actually turned that into a novella. I expanded on the first story and wrote like 2 additional stories with those 2 characters added onto it. So it's all combined into one novella that's about 200 pages.
That's awesome.
I have that set to release. I think it's June 23rd or 24th. I set it at that date so I would have enough time to get author copies for the Texas AuthorCon.
Oh, great. So you'll have some new stuff on the table. That's always fun to do.
Yeah.
I have some things that are just new coming out because you just released that project. Just was it 2 weeks ago?
You can't see it.
Oh, now you're gone. It's a magic trick.
Yeah, the Hillbillies and Homicidal Maniacs with
there it is. There it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that cover.
Yeah,
I think it's.
And we're actually working on a second one for that too, which we were originally going to do it Halloween themed, but neither one of us could come up with stories that like really centered around Halloween. So it's probably going to come out around Halloween, but it's not going to be Halloween themed. But I've got like 3.5 stories written, and I'm only going to put 3 in, but it's kind of 2 of them I'm dead set on, and the other 2, it's like, do I finish this one or do I use the other one? I'm kind of going back and forth between that, and he's working on his 3 stories as well. So
very cool. That's a great idea. And I like the fact that you're not making a Halloween themed, even though it's going to come out. Because I mean, kind of technically it is, just because it's horror. So I mean, you can put it whenever.
Yeah.
But I think that's cool. Yeah, sometimes I have the same problem. People are like, "Hey, I want you to write this story, and it needs to be based on this specific date," and then all the ideas dry up, and you're like, "Well, I have no idea what I'm going to do if I have to do it on this specific date." So I had that problem with the Christmas anthology I did. I was like, "Oh, if it was any other time, I'd have been fine," but all of a sudden, I couldn't think of anything to do for a Christmas idea. So.
That was what surprised me too with that Till Death anthology that Crimson Pinnacle is putting out. When I submitted for that, it was like I had just finished writing a story like 2 days before, and it was just a story that popped in my head that I figured I would use for like a future collection or something. And I saw their posts for submissions for that, and it was, stuff related around like death or the Grim Reaper or something. And my story was like almost there, but it was kind of a little bit outside of the box from that. But I still figured, what the hell, and I submitted it. I figured I would get a rejection, and then it was just like Mike was one of the proofreaders for it, and he read that story. He's like, I don't know what they're going to say, but he's like, that was one of the more original stories that I read, so I want it in there, and they ended up using it. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, Mike was talking a lot about that story, singing its praises, and I'll tell you right now, thinking outside the box is always the best way to go. Because you'll really stand out, especially when you have people like Mike that are doing the reading, because he's a good one to try. He's not going to let just nonsense pass. So, but he was singing the praises of that story all weekend when we were at Scares.
Yeah.
I actually just started reading Till Death. RJ sent me a copy of it, so.
Oh, cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about the other stories in it. I just know what mine is, so I'm looking forward to.
Mike's was the second. The first was a poem. I forget who wrote it.
Andrew Lennon.
Yes. Mike's story was second, and that was pretty interesting. It was a pretty interesting story.
Yeah, if you want to talk about thinking outside the box, pretty much everything Mike does is going to be outside the box. It's going to be a part of the theme, but it'll be,
not what you expect.
The loosest definition of whatever the theme is what you get with Mike, which I always enjoy. He always makes every collection or book he does interesting simply by being, Mike. So.
Yeah, that's one of the things I like about, like, every time I see an open submission from Crimson Pinnacle, I'm like, I'm definitely submitting. I missed Till Death because I had a bunch of other stuff going on, but I know they always pick great stories. So I don't ever have a problem with submitting. I'm not saying I'm always going to get picked, but I know that if it does get picked, it's picked because it's good and not because it's just, it was Donna, just put her story in there,
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've interviewed them before as Crimson Pinnacle Press or whatever. So, we kind of got an idea early on how they did their stuff, and both RJ and Jason are great. And so the fact that they've added Michael to kind of look at some of these too really lets you know that there's 3 serious people doing this.
Yeah.
I have the Dead Heat one. I just haven't opened it up yet.
Yeah.
I know you have a story in that one.
Yep, I have a story in that one and Season of the Witch. And Mike actually reached out to me about my submission for Season of the Witch. And I'm like, oh, okay, thank you. I was kind of like shocked when I got a message from him.
He's a good beta reader because what I mentioned, the upcoming one with the Appalachian Zombies, the full title of the book is Jasper and the Appalachian Zombies. And Mike has already beta read it. And he said it's actually, in his opinion, the best thing I've written so far. So.
Wow.
Very cool.
Yeah. Go Jason, look at you breaking out. You're becoming a household name.
Well, I think for me with that story, it was just because that was the initial part of it was the first story I ever really wrote to completion that I didn't, trash halfway through, that I actually made myself finish it and actually felt proud enough of it to put it out somewhere. And I kind of grew attached to those characters because there was a lot of me in that story because it was my first time really branching out to do that. So that was part of why I wanted to do more with it. And I feel like there's probably more of me in that book than any of the other stories I've written, just because I have like this attachment I've grown to those characters.
Sure, that makes sense. And it also will come across to the reader, when you make it personal and you can do that, and you're not just, channeling stuff out. You're just doing, something that close to you. Readers can sense that. And usually it comes across as much better. So that's really cool because it lets people, that's another way people will get to know you better. Is through your characters, especially the stories like that. So
yeah. Now this isn't a question that we have on our list, but I just want to ask it because you're newer to being, to writing and getting published. What was the thing that made you say, hey, you know what? I'm going to give this a shot?
Well, it's something I've always wanted to do, and I had sat down in years past a few times and tried to write stuff. And like I said, it was just that hurdle that I think any kind of artist, whether it be a writer, painter, anything like that, has to get past. Is just you start to write something and you're like, oh, this is crap, and you throw it away or get rid of it. But it was really when I started editing a little bit, like, because that's how I became friends with Stuart Bray. We started talking because I read a few of his books. I started editing for him, and when I was editing the first book for him, I was going through it and I was just, why am I not doing this myself? You know, I've always wanted to do this. I've always wanted to create horror, and just reading so many great indies out there. Like, I used to think some of the ideas I had were stuff that just wouldn't work for horror. And then I read this stuff and it's just some of the craziest ideas I've ever read. And I'm like, if these people are doing their ideas, I can do mine, you know, like, and I'm not saying that in a bad way. Like, it's kept it interesting. I've enjoyed the books way more than movies in the last couple of years, just because it's more original ideas.
Yeah, I had that same awakening with the Layman, because you know, a lot of his premises are just wild and crazy and they don't make sense. And you're like, how did he get 300 pages out of, you know, going to buy a pack of condoms, or you know, with Come Out Tonight, or some of the other ones. You know, some of them are you know, you can tell Resurrection Dream is Frankenstein, and you know, he's got the Mummy one with Amara.
You know, Come Out Tonight is one that I did recently on Audible, and I don't know, like, I love the first half of it, like the whole suspense thing with it, but the second half of it, just for me personally, just I didn't care for the direction it went into. Like, I don't know, but like the first half of it, like, really had me on the edge of my seat, just like, what's going on? Where it happened to her? Is her husband or boyfriend? I can't remember, but
boyfriend, I think.
Yeah, like, what happened to him when he went to that store? Where did he go? And it really had me on edge. And then when it came down to it, I don't know, maybe I built it up to be more in my head, but
sometimes that happens too, because he's got so much going on, and you're going to see how is he going to be able to stick the landing, and he doesn't always stick the landing. But yeah, you're right. The beginning of it's very good. It's been a while since I've read it, so I do remember you get to the point where she's spoiler alert, she's considered dead, and the kids find her and they're poking her with the stick and all that stuff, and there's the fires going on and all that stuff, and then she has to continue. So I don't even remember how it ends, to be honest with you. I just remember the beginning. But like Darkness Tells Us was the first one I read from him, and that book is completely wild and crazy, and it's got level upon level. He just keeps ratcheting it up and making it more and more insane. And then I was like, oh, I didn't realize I could just keep doing that. I thought we had to be kind of more like Dean Koontz, Stephen King, you know, all the horror I'd read up to that point, nothing was like that. And then here's Layman going crazy. So yeah, some of his earlier stuff I think is much better than the later things.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I never really even thought so until I got involved in reading with indie horror. I never even considered Dean Koontz's horror. It like, and I read his stuff. Like, I had read Lightning way back in the 90s. I didn't consider that horror. I think Watchers I just read last year for the first time, and I considered that to be a little bit. That's definitely horror, but like all the stories I had read from Dean Koontz back in the day, I'm like, I never thought he was a horror writer. And then, you know, hearing a lot of people in the indie horror scene say, oh yeah, I used to read, you know, Dean Koontz, and, you know, and then I read Watchers. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess he is a horror author.
What's funny is I've only read Phantoms, and I read that last year. That's the only thing I've ever read of his. Because when I did try and pick something up, I thought, well, this isn't anything, and I put it down. It was one of had a dragon on the cover, or something like that, probably in the 90s. And so I've never actually read, but he's always been listed with King and you know, Anne Rice. I don't like Anne Rice at all. I don't like any of the mainstream.
I don't
people.
either.
I respect Anne Rice for what she did, but it's just her. I tried the vampire series. I got halfway through the second one and I couldn't go anymore.
I don't like her style. I don't know. I didn't like anything about it. So, but I mean, you know, if you do like her, that's great. And, you know, high five for her getting all that stuff out there. But no, everything about it, I didn't find it as interesting at all. So, and then most of the time I'm like that. I'm like, I don't get it, but everybody seems to like it. So I guess it must be fine. I'm that way with Stephen King too. I don't really like him at all. So
he can be either way with me. Like, I feel like some of his stuff is a bit overwritten, but like I've liked most of what I've read from him. There's a few I didn't care for. It's just I've been enjoying this other stuff more.
I think The Shining is probably my favorite, you know, and that's maybe more because I read it when I was so young. I remember it fondly. So, but usually I think he can't end a book. He hasn't figured out an ending in years, you know.
Pet Cemetery, I will say though, I feel like he did a really good job all the way through.
Pet Cemetery might be the most complete, perfect book he's written. Yeah, and I think it's actually the most extreme book he's written.
It's definitely like, even I never read it until I did it on Audible about 3 years ago, and even as an adult, like it creeped me out listening to it, and it was a really dark story.
Yeah, Pet Sematary, Shining, Misery. Those are probably my 3 favorite. I'm probably forgetting something. I think half of it is worth reading, but I can't stand any of the adult stuff they did. And it's so boring. I don't know.
Yeah.
His short stories are really good too. Like Night Shift is a really good collection.
Yeah, Night Shift is a great collection. But it's just, you know what? I prefer coked out of his mind Stephen King than what we get now. So.
Yeah.
And maybe I need to check some of the newer stuff out, but I haven't read anything since Needful Things came out. That was the last book I read, and I didn't finish it because I got so annoyed with the way he was going at the ending. I just put it down and never finished it. So
Dr. Sleep is a really good one.
Which one?
Dr. Sleep.
Yeah, the movie was fine. I watched the movie and let that be my, I like his kid. Joe Hill. You read any of his stuff? I like some of his stuff.
I have everything he's written on that shelf.
I think Horns. I think Horns is genius. I really like Horns, and it's really not a horror book.
No, the movie was okay, but the book was freaking amazing. My favorite from Joe Hill is another one. That's collection was his first one, 20th Century Ghost. I think that is about as perfect as a story collection can get because it hits a broad range of different types of horror. And every single one of those stories lands, in my opinion. Like, I just absolutely love that collection and every story in it.
Okay. Well, I haven't read that one, so maybe I'll put that on the list. I read Heart-Shaped Box and Horns are the 2 I've read that I've enjoyed.
I think you probably could still get it as 20th Century Ghost. I know it was repackaged as The Black Phone because the Black Phone story came from that book. But because I remember I was like, how are they going to make a movie of this story? And they added a lot to it. I thought the movie was good, but it was definitely one of those where they took a short story and, took a lot of liberties to make it into a full movie.
Gotcha.
That's good. It's amazing how when you start reading independent authors, how those big, traditionally published authors, you don't really think about them. Because when I think about the next book I want to read, it's an indie author, even if I'm not reading horror, which I know, shocker, sometimes I don't read horror, with a few exceptions, even if I'm not reading horror, I'm reading an independent author. It's just, and the only traditionally published books that I read lately are all vintage horror from Paperbacks of Hell.
Part of the reason we're doing this was to force us to read classic horror novels and talk about them and see where we are. That's why we started doing this podcast, was to kind of, at least I needed the homework assignment because otherwise I wasn't going to read anything.
Have you all dove into Michael McDowell yet?
No, we haven't.
Oh, not God. Yet. Blackwater. That is so good. It's not even really full on horror, but it's just a really, really good story.
Well, we'll have to throw it down on the list and see. We were going to do like old school Dracula, Frankenstein next. And then right now we're doing werewolves. So we'll flow into the classics and then from there we'll see where it takes us. So, but we did like old 70s spiritual stuff like Exorcist and Omen.
Amityville.
Amityville.
I couldn't get into the Amityville horror. That book was just, I don't know. It was I don't know. Like, I love the movie, but the book was almost just like reading a true crime transcript.
That's what I loved about it, actually. Because we read that last year, right?
Yeah. It was like the 4th one we did. And it was actually the one at the time that we liked the most because it was a little more, I don't know, familiar, I guess.
Yeah, like true crime. I loved the format that it was in. It was like reading a transcript of the actual like crime, police notes and stuff like that or whatever.
I don't know. I just couldn't get into it when I tried it.
But we won't hold it against you because we bagged on something that everybody loves and we got a little pushback on that. Now I can't think of what it was. Was it? It wasn't Rosemary's Baby, was it? Was that the one that we were bagging on?
Was it Exorcist? The Exorcist was.
It may have been Exorcist because we weren't fond of the Exorcist either.
I liked that one.
It was we didn't not like it, but there was some parts that we were just like, why is there so much medical information in the middle of this book? And I guess we thought it was reading too technical at the time.
Yeah.
Now there's one where we came across where I had to go through it. It wasn't Hellraiser because we enjoyed that one, but
Hellbound Heart's really good.
Yeah, that was our first episode, so we did that first, and then we did the movie, and then we've done the remake movie, So we've had some fun on here, and we hope people start reading with us. But yeah, most of the time it's books that everybody else has already read, and we're just behind the times. So
yeah, we were really making fun of the Amityville movie with the Brolin in his tidy whities running down.
Funny. Yeah, very funny. Yeah, we had so far it's been good, and I'm excited to get into. When we get done with werewolves, we're going to get right into Dracula and Frankenstein, and probably Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and all the classics, and see what we think of those styles. So.
Yeah, because I haven't read any of the classics. I know, I'm a bad person, but I haven't read Dracula. I haven't read Frankenstein.
Frankenstein is really good. I wasn't a fan of Dracula. It was actually a DNF for me. I just thought it was way too slow, and I could not get into it.
Yeah, I read it a long time ago, but I've looked at it since then, and I have a feeling I'm going to be struggling. So, but we'll get
Frankenstein is really good.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Frankenstein. And not to steer us away from this part of it, but other than coming to Texas AuthorCon, where else can we get your stuff? Where can people find all your stuff at?
Well, it's all on Amazon. All but Wreckage is on Godless. Okay. Wreckage I didn't put on Godless because I wanted to try out using what is it, KDP Select, which is the Kindle Unlimited. Because you can't do the Unlimited and Godless together. So I put it on there just to try out, to kind of get my name out there a little bit more for people who use KU and stuff like that. But I also have, if I could probably send you the link if you want to link it in like show notes.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have all the links down below for you, but we just wanted you to be able to talk.
Yeah, because you have a big cartel site, don't you?
Yeah. I actually have like a 20% off sale on it right now this weekend.
Sweet. There's a good chance though that this video won't be going on. Yeah. It'll be over, but we'll post it to the Facebook page so that people know that you have a sale.
Well, let me know when you're ready to post it, and I'll probably do another sale for that weekend too.
Okay. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we'll definitely let you know. But yeah, so Amazon, your website. You also do book reviews. So you're on TikTok, Instagram.
And Instagram.
You read just as voraciously as I do.
It hasn't been as much lately just because I've been doing a lot of writing and other stuff too. But I still get a lot of the books I'm getting done now are just Audible because I spend, 10 hours a day in a work truck. So even though I prefer like a physical book, I can fly through an audiobook in a day or two a lot of times. I don't have that full 10 hours to listen, but I can zoom through them pretty quick, driving around rural West Virginia all day.
Good times. What was the last book you listened to?
The last one I finished was actually, what was that? It's one I saw recommended on TikTok. It's called Violet is Nowhere. It kind of had like a Black Mirror vibe to it. This chick, she was abducted. She wakes up in this like vacation cabin, but she's trapped in there. But like nobody's trying to hurt her. There's like food and stuff for her in the fridge, and there's a burner cell phone that only dials one number. And there's a note that says she has to call. And this person doesn't know who she is either when she calls them, but her and the person that the phone will contact have to figure out what their connection is as to like why she's there.
Sounds interesting.
That does sound interesting.
And honestly, I thought about like 3/4 through, I thought I had it figured out, and I kind of got mad because I was just like, this is a ripoff of something else, and I'm not going to say what it was to spoil it, but it ended up not being that, and it ended up being different than I thought it was going to end. So I was really satisfied with that. I was happy to see that it wasn't, because I thought like I had it pegged. I thought I knew exactly where it was going, and it kind of had me mad. Like I said, I was just like, this is this all over again, and it was not that. So it was definitely worth a read. It was a pretty cool little suspenseful story.
All right, cool.
I forget the author's name, but I saw a video of somebody talking about it on TikTok, and it was one of those, I just got my 2 Audible credits for the month, and I was like, okay, that sounds cool.
Yeah. I'll have to check that out. Message me the name of the book again.
Okay.
Facebook's, because I definitely want to check that out.
Not actually, like on the Texas AuthorCon stuff, right before that, I had listened to Meryl David's Season Pass, and that was an interesting book too. I liked that one.
Very cool.
Nice. Yeah, I'm trying to read some books by people at Texas AuthorCon, even if they're not horror. Trying to bang some of those out so I don't feel like a complete dweeb.
That was like 2 months ago after I signed up for it. I did the same thing. Like my 2 credits, I got one from Merrill, which was Fester, his other book Fester. So I've done 2 of his now. And I did Dark Sacrifice from Jay Bauer. Yeah. Just because it was kind of the same thing. It was like wanted to try to get into some of the authors I hadn't read yet that are going to be there.
Yeah. I just finished Cadaverous by Jay Bauer, and that was really good.
Oh, I'm planning on picking that one up from him at the con.
Yeah, that was
Yeah, me too.
He had sent me an arc of it, and it was really good. It's kind of written in like not a journal format, but a blog post format. So I love books that are formatted like that, like journal entries or transcripts of recordings or stuff like that.
Oh, then you'll love Dracula.
Oh, okay.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, because I like stuff like that too, because I think if I remember correctly, when you read Static, you liked the story I did that was like a podcast transcript.
Yes. Yep. The podcast one. Yep. Yeah, I like those. I just think they're different, and I haven't seen very many of them like that. So they're good. All right. Well, thank you for joining us, Jason. Again, you can find Jason's books on Amazon. We'll have a link in the description to not only his Amazon page, but also his Big Cartel site, where you can order from him directly. And we'll also link you to his Book Talk, his TikTok account, so you can watch his reviews.
And Instagram, everything.
Well, if it makes it easier, I'll just send you my link tree because it has all that stuff on there.
Yeah,
that works too. Okay, great. Yeah, and make sure you come out to Texas AuthorCon the weekend of July 14th and 15th.
Right, and it's right after your birthday, right? Your birthday's Thursday, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the 13th. It's my 40th birthday.
Yeah, so come out and buy a book so you can celebrate Jason's birthday.
That's right. Celebrate with a book.
Yeah. So it's in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So we'll see you there.